Hello, everybody in Social Work 668. Welcome to week 3 of class. I am just going to share my screen with you really quickly and pull up our PowerPoint for this week and get situated. There we go. Okay, the fireworks are because you have made it through the first 2 weeks of class. And I just want to say it's been such a pleasure getting to know you. This seems like a very conscientious and vigilant class when it comes to not only completing the assignments on time, but also communicating and giving me feedback, even when little things are wrong. So just keep going, keep communicating with me. Effective communication is key. Continue to talk to me. Never apologize to me for any questions that can come up. I think in the online learning space, it is critical that we keep talking to each other and asking questions, and you are never bothering me when you reach out. I just have a few general reflections and requests. So if you could please put Social Work 668 in the subject line when you email me, it just helps me orient quickly to this class. I teach across several different curriculums, several different programs, our MSSW program, as well as I mentor a lot of PhD students and teach in our PhD program. So if you could do that, that will just help me know exactly which class you are referring to right away. And after you receive an email from me, just send me a quick email back saying, gotcha, thanks, received. And that way the whole line of communication is complete. Some little glitches have been coming up with in Softalk lately. So just a few tips if you are struggling with Softalk, or for whatever reason what's being pulled up is a blank white screen. You never want that to happen. If there is a blank white screen, there should be something there. So what I want you to do if that ever happens is hit the refresh button after each question. You also might need to update your plugins, browser, or Java. And just a quick reminder that all of the steps in each of the Softalk lessons should be completed by Monday night at 11:59 p.m. So just before midnight. Just some common technology issues across the board. Please keep communicating with me about them. Some of the things that keep coming up year after year is that Firefox might be preventing you from seeing an image in the Softalk. So if this keeps happening, try to use a different browser than Firefox. I found it to not be the most effective. In terms of session 2 recap, so this is last week we focused on ethical issues in program evaluations. You reviewed several articles and you completed a journal, which was really effective in my opinion, looking at kind of the values, ethics, and principles of program evaluation within multicultural, anti-racist settings, and comparing that to the NESW Code of Ethics. And sort of one is, what is our role in this space as evaluators? What is our role in this space as social work practitioners? How do the two combine and converge? Often when we're doing two different tasks, how are the values still the same? So you are all moving right along in this class. Getting to the readings for each week, the Softalk lessons do an overview of the readings. So I actually recommend reading like the Royce book and the articles that I post in Blackboard every week prior to completing the tasks in Blackboard, and which also includes reviewing the Softalk lesson, which is the participation points for the week. So our journals, blogs, whatever assignment has some points to it every week. Softalk has every point, so that combines to your five participation points every week. But just make sure you do the readings before, because in Softalk, sometimes something pops up. I don't want you to get caught not having done the readings for this week when the Softalk quiz popper or whatever's come a reflection exercise is asking you to reference the reading. That's kind of the most effective. And that's why I put the steps down, like step 1, do the reading, step 2, etc., 3, 4. Okay, turning in assignments on time. So this is just pulled straight from the syllabi, and there is some nuance to this. Each assignment must be completed by the date it is due. So, for example, our soft check lessons, our journals, our blog, weekly assignments, etc. Monday, 11:59 p.m. That's so I can try to review the assignments and get ready to posting everything by 5 p.m. on Tuesday, just so I have a sense of how everybody did for the week. I've been trying to stay really on top of this, and every day grade things coming in. I'm sort of starting to know a pattern in this class. Some of you are really eager to turn yours in day one that I post everything, and some of you wait to the very final hour. So it's just interesting to see the flow of the class. Just keep trying to stay on time, because assignments turned in after the date and time that they are due are considered late. However, if a crisis occurs, and we all know there are so many crises in this day and age, and it will impede your ability to complete the assignment on time, contact me immediately. Again, communication is key. If not, your grade will be lowered 2 points for each day, unless you have contacted me ahead of time to explain extenuating circumstances. And trust me, I know extenuating circumstances come up. So we can agree on an extension. Just make sure that you communicate with me so that you do not lose those points. Okay, so let's get into understanding needs assessments and really the purpose of the needs assessments. So you want to think about this on a micro level as well as a macro level in terms of how needs assessments are effective. And so this is a little bit of an analogy about how we can think of needs assessments in relationship to social work practice, because they do two different things, but we want to first be able to connect to what we're doing in social work practice when seeing clients to be able to understand more of the macro purposes of conducting needs assessments. So you're a therapist working with a child for the first time. So think of the child using the language of program evaluation, not just as a client, but being a part of your population of focus. Your first step is to assess. This is where the needs assessment comes in. You start with a psychosocial assessment where you're obtaining information directly from the child. Throughout your assessment, you learn that the child is having difficulty in school. This is where you want to shift and look at the environment that the child is in. So the person and environment practice in social work. You may find it effective to talk to the teachers to understand how the child's behavior is in the classroom environment. You may also want to interview the parents to understand behavior in the home environment. This is all part of the assessment. You are in the gathering of data process in terms of your relationship as a social worker to the child. So you want to look at multiple sources of data and piece together all the information to understand the child and the environment that the child is in. So when we pull back and think about this on a more macro level, from the example above, you can see that you are assessing needs constantly when working with clients. That's what we do as social workers. The same skills are used in needs assessments at the macro level. You may work with a specific population on a micro level, which is considered your population of focus. And as you assess, you're constantly pulling in information. You're constantly considering multiple factors. The needs assessment of an organization or community is the same. You will interview key members of the organization. As noted above, you do the same at the micro level all the time. The difference is looking closely at the organization. The example above would be the school. The school would be your organization of focus. And then in assessing that organization, you identify how that organization is impacting the population of focus or the child. So you start from a broad perspective and then you focus in on a micro lens. So that's really what we do in program evaluation. So the very first step of conducting a large-scale program evaluation, which is what we're going to do in this course, and before we develop a logic model, before we look at intervention or evidence-based practices or come up with a plan, is that we need to interview people to understand their needs. So we believe that it's important to assess any program as well as the community when needed. You're asking yourself as the evaluator a question. What are you wanting to know about your chosen program and community? That's why we did our journal entry week 1. So you had that understanding of your program and understanding of your community. So review the needs assessment assignment. So I've done a more in-depth video about that specific assignment, which is available in the assignments tab in Blackboard. Your interview guidelines will be submitted actually in a journal this week. So really pay attention to this. This course is designed so that we are not constantly duplicating work, but one assignment builds off another assignment, builds off another assignment. So we're not constantly reinventing the wheel, but we're building off of our work from our journals every week. So let's take a closer look. We are going to go over needs assessments in SoftChalk this week. There's some quiz poppers and there's some chapter review questions. So make sure that you do your reading prior to engaging in the SoftChalk lesson. So what I'm asking you to do after doing the reading, after doing the SoftChalk lesson, is that I'm asking you to do a journal this week. And the journal this week is really cool because it's incredibly useful. We're going to focus on interviewing. So we need to interview to gather information to be able to do our needs assessment. So first, we're going to identify project partners. So these are our practitioners, administrators, our policymakers. So you are focusing on an organization. So students need to have relationships in their community in order to be able to identify an organization. So I highly suggest you reach out to your practicum placement, to your work site, to an organization that you volunteer at, something you're familiar with, and you identify 3 project partners to interview in that organization. Now, for this year, we're going to steer away from actually interviewing clients. So think about people that are practitioners, administrators, policymakers, volunteers, people that are connected to the organizations, but not in the role of receiving services. If you are focusing on a community, you want to identify at least 3 project partners within the community who provide services. So there's some examples provided as well along with the needs assessment assignment. You also want to consider others who influence the group, such as partners who can provide a service to the group. So we want to break down service recipients number 1. Want to provide a brief description of why they were chosen to be interviewed, including any relevant background and history. This does not include names. In fact, you can use code names. I often like to ask participants that I work with in this capacity to provide me with a code name that's meaningful to them. Do not provide a student selected code per person, such as A, B, and C. That in program evaluation is considered to be dehumanizing. So it's much better to ask the participant to assign themselves a code name. Second, service providers. We want you to identify the individual and their credential/background information. So code name, title, length of employment, years in the field, provide a brief description of why they were chosen to be interviewed. 3, others, if relevant. So identify an individual, provide a brief description of why they were chosen to be interviewed with any relevant background or history. These can be community organizers. These can be people that are connected to the organization through policymaking, through advocacy, volunteering, etc. I will leave that up to you because every human service organization is really designed differently. Okay. So interview questions. I will also consult if requested. So some of you may or may not know that my specialty in life is qualitative interviewing, data collection, and analysis. So I love to think about well-worded questions to elicit qualitative data. It's fun for me. So if you need help or if you want me to look over your interview guide or your questions, I'm happy to do so. So this specific step is connected to your needs assessment assignment. We are not reinventing the wheel. We're just pulling out this step for this week. So I want you to identify some questions that you are going to ask your project partners. because social workers engage in research-informed practice. Thus, it's important that you have an understanding of the relevant empirical literature related to your group. First, you're going to conduct a literature review that identifies between 5 to 7 peer-reviewed journal articles published in the last 10 years. That is because we are not pulling interview questions out of thin air. We are going to make sure that they are grounded in relevant literature and theory connected to our field. This literature will help inform your questions as well as your findings, because once you have gathered your data, analyzed your data, come up with findings, you're then going to connect it back to relevant literature and theory related to social work practice. You are not asked to summarize the literature that you have collected, rather than critically analyze and apply this information to inform your interview questions, guide, and support your findings. As you develop your questions, refer back to step 3, which is the rationale for the needs assessment. So you can see you're kind of moving in and out of iterative interpretation across the needs assessment assignment. So it's super important that you review the needs assessment assignment as a whole and see how all the steps fit together, as well as reviewing soft check lesson for session 3. Okay, so our complete needs assessment assignment is due September 27th, so that we have some time. Reach out to me if you have any questions. Next week, I'm super excited to be presenting qualitative methods in evaluation. And this is just going to give you more information on how to effectively gather qualitative data. So stories, perspectives, lived experiences through spoken word, through interacting with your participant population in the field. Super exciting. Last inspirational quote of the week: keep pushing yourself because no one else is going to do it for you. Stay independently motivated to complete your studies. You are all so close and you're starting out the semester so strong. Thank you very much, and I will see you next week. Take care.